Hello, everybody here in the audience and especially you watching online. Welcome to the DigiPLACE regional workshop here in Tallinn. My name is Jaan Saar. I'm the head of digital construction at the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communications here in Estonia. I'm also a member of the advisory board for the DigiPLACE project. And welcome. Today is the first day, the start of a new school year in Estonia and in many countries around the world, 1st of September. And what better day to pick to learn more about what is happening in digital construction and about an exciting project which is called DigiPLACE. If you don't yet know about it, then we will give you a really good overview today. But first, before we dive into DigiPLACE projects, I would like to point out that we're also organizing this in collaboration with WDBE, which is the World Summit for Digital Built Environment, which is a conference, a virtual conference that's going to take place on the 29th and 30th of September. And it is a really exciting event. DigiPLACE is not directly related to WDBE, but we are organizing this regional workshop as kind of a pre-event. And since the topics are pretty much the same or they overlap, then it's, I think, good to point out that how WDBE is also related to this project. And if we can have the next slides, I think we have a few more slides about just to show about WDBE. It's a global conference and it's going to be organized fully online. It's basically an illusion city between Helsinki and Tallinn. And next slide, please. And we're happy to announce that actually today a press release went out that we are partnering with Epic Games and we're using the Unreal Engine to create a first-in-the-world experience when it comes to a business conference. So check it out at wdbe.org. Here are some of the keynote speakers that will be presenting virtually in a virtual environment. So that's really cool. So now that we have that out of the way, we can go on with the DigiPLACE regional workshop program here. That's taking place in Tallinn. We have a few people in the audience here, and we initially planned to do this as a fully on-site workshop and to have the online video feed as an addition. But since the situation around the world and Europe is constantly changing, the new normality, we've kind of had to switch to going mostly digital with local people having the opportunity to come here to a Swiss hotel in Tallinn, where this event is taking place right now. So, the agenda. So we have a very interesting day prepared for you. And I will now like to hand over the talk to Ricardo Viaggi. He's from the Committee for European Construction Equipment, and he's the real reason why this workshop is taking place. So I'm kind of filling in place for Ricardo, but I will let him introduce DigiPLACE, the project himself. So Ricardo, are you online?
Hello, good morning, everyone. I am online. I hope you can hear me correctly. Thank you very much, Jan, for introducing me and for allowing me to say a few words here. I am indeed very sorry not to be there with you in Tallinn. We're all struggling with the current circumstances of COVID not allowing us to travel. But we would like to thank all the participants for being in Tallinn, in presence, and also online. We are, as CECE, is in charge of the dissemination and communication of this European funded project, a project funded by the European Union of which you will hear everything by Professor Turk in a minute. We are very happy to see many of you either physically or online. This is a responsibility of ours to communicate about this project, about the action that we undertake, and we are indeed thankful to the ministry, to Kira Hub, and to WDBE, as well as to the Finnish Association of Civil Engineers for supporting this event today. We are thankful for this regional workshop, which is a first of other events that will take place throughout the next month. Hopefully, more and more in physical presence, but otherwise, technologies will always help us in this endeavor. As my responsibility is communication about the project, I also would like to point you towards DigiPLACEproject.eu in one single word as the website of our project, where you can find all the information about the project, the public reports that we produce as a project, and the calendar of the next events, which will also be for your interest possibly. Indeed, we have other future meetings of dissemination to which everyone is invited, as this is a project funded by the European Commission. We have a duty to communicate as widely as possible. And this is our goal of today. So I would like to thank the DigiPlace speakers that have agreed to be online with us this morning to present to you the project, where we stand, to also involve you in the community of stakeholders, and also to involve you in the inputs that this project will need. This is all I wanted to say, and I would like to conclude.
Introducing DigiPLACE, an EU-wide collaboration of 19 partners from 11 countries, representing the construction industry, academia, and national governments, united in a single mission: to build the foundation for a digital collaborative future for the European construction industry. Europe's construction sector is unique and rich in history. It's given shape to our beautiful cultural heritage and provides millions of Europeans with a safe and extensive infrastructure and comfortable homes and workplaces. However, when it comes to digitalization, the construction sector has not reached its full potential yet. The sector's long and complex supply chain makes the implementation of innovation difficult. In spite of several promising national and European initiatives to boost digitalization, the complexities of the EU market have prevented cross-trade and cross-country synergies from taking place. That's where DigiPLACE comes in. As the shared platform for innovation, collaboration, and mutual learning, DigiPLACE aims to provide a solid digital foundation that all European construction players can build upon. Our goal is to integrate digital construction technologies, applications, and services, provide best practices, and plan a roadmap for the future. What will digital construction look like? How can it energize your production and supply chain? How will it affect your work, market, and consumers? A shift to digital can seem daunting. That's why we are building DigiPLACE jointly, brick by brick. All across Europe, digitalization is driving the productivity of industries and services, and construction cannot stay behind. Visit our website and get involved now. Let's build the digital future of the European construction industry together.
So, thanks Ricardo for the introduction. I think that was a really good video as well to show kind of a brief summary, a glimpse into what DigiPLACE is. And before we go on with our next presentation, Ricardo, do you have anything more you would like to add to the video? Because we had a slight abrupt.
if you allow me just a last word, last but certainly not least, I would like to thank the local team of technicians and event manager led by Ave that are making it possible. That's all.
Thanks, Ricardo. And we also have an opportunity for all the viewers out there, and of course the people in the audience, to ask questions. We are using Slido where you can send in your questions, and we can take them during the presentations. So just go to slide.do. So this is the website for Slido, and search for DigiPLACE, and it will come up as an event. And then you can just submit your questions throughout the event. So whenever you have a question to any of the presenters on our agenda, just send it through that app, and we will try to answer them as best as we can. All right, so can we have the agenda slide once more, so we can go quickly over the over today's agenda. So we have two sections for today. On the first half, we're going to talk about the project itself. Professor Ziga Turk is going to present. Then we're going to give some local perspective of what we're doing in Estonia and Finland, and how it relates to DigiPLACE, this project. And then before lunch, we're going to look at the reference architecture framework. So that's going to be done by two presenters. Then we're going to have a 45-minute lunch break here in Tallinn, and hopefully you at wherever you are. And then we'll go and look at the strategic roadmap after lunch, and also about how you can be involved with the DigiPLACE project itself by being part of the community. And of course, questions and answers section and brainstorming, which we will do before closing remarks. So we should be done by 2:20 Estonian time, 1:20 Central European time. And yeah, that's the agenda for today. But now, hopefully we have Professor Ziga Turk from University of Ljubljana online. Professor Turk, are you there?
Yes, hello, good morning from Ljubljana, Slovenia. I'm really sorry, like Ricardo was, that I was not able to travel to Tallinn. I was there about maybe 10 years ago, and I was really looking forward to a possibility to visit again. So without any further ado, would you just bring up my first slide? And what I'd like to do is actually provide some motivation, provide some general idea of what the DigiPLACE project is about. Some people know me already. I have been in the field of construction information technology for actually whole of my professional life, last 35 years or so, seen many things. And again, you know, what is happening today, what is happening with the platforms, again, it feels like this could be the silver bullet. This could be the thing that could really push, that could really move construction forward. The brief outline of the talk is that, well, actually the internet changed how we live. The actual game changers was not just the internet per se, but the platforms and intermediaries that have changed how we use IT in our private lives. And somehow we feel in the DigiPLACE consortium that the same approach, same paradigm could work in construction. There's a change of paradigm. It will be demanding. There are opportunities and threats that go with it. The opportunity is empowerment of everybody in the value chain. But the threats are also, you know, who will take control of this, who will reap the benefits. And strategically, there has been a decision by the European Union that the EU needs its own industrial platforms. And what the DigiPLACE project is about is to chart the way towards a European industrial platform for construction. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, this should be the graphical outline of the talk, but somehow it did not render properly. I'd like to start with a quote by Bill Gates. Some of us hate him, some of us love him. He made a couple of good decisions. He has a couple of good insights. And early in this century, he said the following. He said, as we look ahead into the next century, leaders will be those who empower others. So the empowerment of others was supposed to be the winning formula of information technology in this century. Next slide. And actually, it did happen, it did materialize. Maybe Microsoft was not the one that was actually practicing that, but the empowerment came through the revolutionary concept in the form of computing, which were platforms. And these platforms destroyed a lot of traditional industries. Nokia and Blackberries were destroyed by the platforms of iPhone and Android. Hotel business is being challenged by our Airbnb. Taxis are challenged by Uber. Software downloading has been challenged by app stores, Google Play, and other services. Content delivery is on the platforms such as Spotify, YouTube, Blogger, and WordPress. Shops, retail shops are being destroyed by Amazon, for example, and even banks have a platform-like replacement, which is called Kickstart. There are some elements of the industries where platforms were successful. Platforms have been successful in consumer industries where there has been a long tail of consumers, but also a long tail of producers and creators. In areas where things were information intensive, so yes, construction is such an area as well. We have gigabytes in construction design. In areas where there have been non-scalable gatekeepers, so gatekeepers, managers of flow of business values that had limited potential to handle things, and we do have that in construction as well. It was very successful in fragmented industry. It was very successful in industries with information asymmetries, where part of the actors knows a lot and part of the actors does not know so much. So in fact, construction checks all those boxes. So what we think is that, well, if stuff worked for lay people, if stuff worked for our private lives, maybe it could work for construction as well, because construction too is consisting of a lot of individual small and medium companies. The overall architectures of the platform business, next slide, looks something like you have the IT infrastructure. In the bottom, it could be cloud, it could be internet, then you have some platform. On top of that platform, providers of products, providers of services, providers of content set up something, and the end users use whatever they are doing through this particular platform. Next slide. So theoretically, platforms do two things. They reduce transaction costs between providers and suppliers. And probably even more importantly, they enable complementary innovation. They enable that innovations that take place on the platform by different actors, by different players, complement each other. And these actors and players also learn from each other. So this gives us three different types of platforms: transaction platforms, where basically business gets done; innovation platforms, where new stuff is being developed; and hybrid platforms, which are the most successful, which combine the two. And this brings us to construction. Construction, we have all seen these charts. The growth of productivity, the growth of value added, the growth of hourly rates are almost non-existent. The orange line is construction. The bluish line is industry, manufacturing industry, and the average total economy somewhere in the middle. Not much growth at a time where most of the industries were growing because of the introduction of IT. Next slide. But the situation is not actually uniform. Some parts of construction are actually doing quite well. Big housing, large construction, heavy construction. So whenever you have big construction project handled by big companies, things somehow work. Where construction is really bad and what drags the whole industry down is whenever small and medium companies get involved, whenever trades get involved, whenever single family houses are being built, whenever you have these very split and very fragmented types of players that are involved. And this fragmentation of a multitude of small players is very similar to the multitude of small private users of all those platform innovations that have been so successful in our private lives. Next slide. So platforms are bringing a paradigm shift. It's a different way of working, actually. And this different way of working actually means that we depart from a paradigm where we're using services and tools, like we used to do 500 years ago, pen and paper. And of course, later operating system, desktop PC, email, Word, SAP, ETABS, Primavera, AutoCAD, Revit, Archicad. These were services and tools. And the paradigm becomes different. The work is going from the platform, from the desktop onto a platform. We are seeing that already. COVID has been a great accelerator of all that. We get work done on Microsoft Teams. We get work done on Google Suite. We get work done on Slack. And increasingly, work is being done in Autodesk 360, in BIM Plus, in OpenBIM, and so on and so forth. Next slide. So the paradigm is actually, the difference is actually that traditionally, actually for the last, since ever man started using tools, you would have a person in the center, and that person would be using different tools. And on the right-hand side, there's this difference, this new platform ecosystem where in the center there's a platform, and whatever users there are, whatever actors there are, they get to the tools through the platform. And this is a fundamentally different way of working. There are a couple of opportunities there. Of course, delivery of technology. Imagine how advanced your technology that you use for your private life is in comparison to technology for your professional life. A lot of what we use privately is more advanced than what we use professionally because of this paradigm, because of platforms that deliver us this technology. They will improve productivity, interoperability, and integrated work inside projects, but even more importantly, we will start reaping benefits of information and knowledge reuse across projects because all these projects would be on a platform. They enable new business models, intellectual property business models, along the quote that the data is the new oil, and they offer the opportunity in the long tail, in the customization, in the specialization. But where you have opportunities, you also have threats, and this threat is shift of control. Who controls the process? This shift of control can happen from owner, lead designer, lead contractor to the platform, like it happened, for example, when it comes to news, from newspapers to Google, or from television to YouTube. There will be changes in the value chain. There is a promise that IT in construction will give us 20% or more of efficiency gains. Whose gains will this be? Will it be the construction industry that will profit, or some other players? There will be a fight for that. And also, not unlikely, is a great extinction. Platforms destroyed a lot of traditional businesses, like shops, like taxis, like media. They may destroy something in the architecture, engineering, and construction. And the actual problem is that a lot of the software that is out there, a lot of the software that European construction industry is using are American software and American platforms. So there is a need for a European strategy, which brings me to my third point in this presentation. Europe is not very well present in this new economy. These are some of the most valuable platform companies. You see a big chunk present there in the US. You see a sizable chunk present there in China and in East Asia. And then you have Europe almost as irrelevant as Africa. And the European Commission has this strategy that this is supposed to change. The headline under which this is supposed to be changing is Industry 4.0, which is on the next slide. Initiative that is about 10 years old, that should, through digitalization, ensure that European construction and European industries will be able to compete globally. This has support from the highest levels. On the next slide, I have a picture and a quote from Jyrki Katainen, currently Vice President of the European Commission. He said Europe's next unicorn, so Europe's next big successful company could stem from collaborative, from platform economy. And also Max Lemke from the European Commission said, business to business platforms, this is the race that Europe cannot afford to lose. So the thinking in Brussels is, well, Europe, we cannot really compete with Google and YouTube and Facebook and all these consumer platforms, but we have industry still here, we have manufacturing still here. We could create platforms that would make sure that these industries remain globally competitive, and hopefully we even create platforms that will be a global equivalent of the Googles, of the Facebooks, of all the others, of Uber, but for the industries, including construction industry. And this is where DigiPLACE project comes in. Next slide. DigiPLACE project is a Horizon 2020 project under the work program of Information and Communication Technologies, under the heading of digitizing and transforming European industry and services through digital innovation hubs and platforms. Under the topic of digital platforms, DigiPLACE kind of won the competition of who will be thinking about what the construction platform for the European industry would look like. The expected impacts of the DigiPLACE project are numerous. Of course, number one, increased productivity on one hand, and also sustainability of the European construction industry. To facilitate the diffusion of a common language in construction, BIM, Open BIM, Building Smart, under these keywords and probably more. Pave the way for the growth of smart cities and smart infrastructures, much in the sense of Industry 4.0, where these smart things is connected to each other. Strengthening the role of the EU in the global construction ecosystem, so this ambition that if industrial platforms are being built, maybe we could be globally competitive when delivering these platforms. Accelerated and efficient collaboration between public authorities and industry. Validation in usage context of usability, risk and security assessment. Maintaining and extending an active ecosystem of relevant stakeholders, including SMEs, promotion of the diffusion of knowledge and the facilitation of introduction of digital practices, tangible contribution for European key players to actively engage with the platforms in the business process, efficient information sharing across the program stakeholders, and last but not least, facilitate the introduction of digital transformation in the European construction sector. If we look at the map and the logos of where the partners from DigiPLACE are coming from, as I have said, I have been in the construction IT research for quite some time, and here actually you see most of the centers of information technology research in construction that have been active over the past 2 decades or so. You probably recognize quite a few of the logos. Indeed, maybe the Central Europe is not so well represented, but there is more than just the partners of the DigiPLACE project. DigiPLACE is an open project. You could call that DigiPLACE is a kind of a platform of a project where it tries to integrate, it tries to bring together not just the partners, which are many, which are 27 or something like that. It brings in also the linked third parties. It brings all members of the advisory board, which are 27, and it brings together a community of stakeholders. And I would like to warmly welcome you into this community. As far as the advisory board members is concerned, I think anyone, anything that is of note, of prominence in European digital construction is present here, including general consultants like McKinsey, which tells you that these general consultants have discovered that construction could be the next big opportunity for them to, well, expand their business. So from household name like that to all the prominent software players and software providers, software industry, both European and American. The structure of the DigiPLACE project is as following: 7 work packages. Work package 1 is project management, so perhaps not so very interesting for you. Work package 7, communication and dissemination. So this is what we are actually doing right now. But then the core work packages, number 2, long-term community building. So the idea is create this innovation platform that will outgrow, that will last longer, that will sustain life after the end of the project. Work package 3, we started with the work on the digital barometer, so finding out how developed digitally are different companies in Europe, different countries in Europe. Work package 4, what is holding them back? Where are the barriers and gaps? And we suspected that from the beginning, and it is showing now through the research. Platforms seem to be the answer, the solution, and that will overcome many of the gaps and barriers which are being identified. Probably the core work is to define a reference framework architecture of this platform. So of what parts, of what pieces, how should these platforms look like? DigiPLACE will not develop this platform, but it will bring together probably basically an agenda. What should happen in the next framework, in the next projects, in industrial development, so that we will get to this platform, and it will create some boundary conditions, some requirements, how this platform should look like, so that they will fulfill the requirements set up in previous work packages. And finally, strategy roadmap. So how do we get from not having a platform to having globally leading platforms and also local platforms in the European construction industry? The highest level objective on the next slide, the highest level objective of the DigiPLACE project is to create a reference architecture framework. It's called RAF. There will be presentations on that in the remaining of this conference. So reference architecture framework for the digital industrial platform for the construction sector, based on shared consensus along the entire chain. So these platforms, the idea is they have to bring everybody in, and this is what this project is trying to do: find the needs, the desires, the scenarios from companies big and small, from west to the east of Europe. I have been inviting you warmly, and I'm repeating that, to the community of stakeholders. This is the QR code. Scan it with your phone and get involved. We are looking forward to comments, contributions, suggestions, criticism. As I started with Bill Gates, DigiPLACE can empower you to bring your ideas to the table and make sure that your ideas are heard over the course of development of these platforms. So to conclude and to give some way forward, the platform model is coming. It has been very successful in end-user activities. It will improve efficiency, no doubt about that. It will improve productivity, but who will reap the rewards? We cannot, just push out and squeeze out competition from Europe through the legislative actions of the European Commission and through some kind of not quite competitive behavior. We need industrial strategy that will make sure that innovation happens in Europe, that platforms are developed in Europe, that European construction industry is globally more competitive. Because of that, hopefully, even the European construction software industry is able to contribute something to the global market. And DigiPLACE project is charting the way forward into this direction. So with this, I would conclude this presentation, and if there are any questions, I see one question in the Slido, which is: what is the cost of the DigiPLACE project? Probably you mean the funding. I think the funding is, if I remember correctly, order of magnitude of 1 million euros spread over many, many partners. I think this is one of the projects where the European Commission is getting the best value for money, because the quality of the reports, the amount of reporting, the studies that the partners are doing, I can tell you this also for the University of Ljubljana. I think we are doing probably 3 times as much as we are being paid for, because it is so interesting, because it's so great to be able to project some of the ideas and some of the thoughts about and chart the way of the future of construction.
Thank you, Professor Turk. Are there any questions from the audience here in the room? Don't be shy. I know it's a most Estonian audience, so they need a little time to warm up. But I think the presentation was very clear. Thank you, Professor Turk. And
my pleasure.
yeah, if we have later on in the session some questions, we have the questions and answers section, then maybe you can also join us there or be online.
There's another question on Slido, which is not entirely clear to me. It says, whom do you expect as partners the most? I don't know, maybe in the community of stakeholders. Actually, everyone. We need everybody, the entire value chain. But if you are a software company, you might be even more, how should I say, commercially interested, because if you are a software company, if you're a company that works in intellectual property, in digital, in construction, platforms will be where you will be, that will empower you, where you will be making business in the future.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any more questions on Slido? No? Okay. I think then we can move on with our agenda. So next up is, well, it's me. It's local perspective. Okay, I see we have another slide, but this is not actually the current presentation slide. I'll give them a few seconds to sort the technical aspects out. So, yeah, it will be me and also Toni Luhti from Finland, who will be talking about Platform of Trust. But I will be focusing on what we are doing here in Estonia. So, and what the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communications is doing in relation, actually, to this project. So, if we can start with the first slide of the presentation, I'd be happy to introduce the e-construction platform. So, Professor Turk already explained or gave an overview of what the industry is facing. And if we switch to the next slide, just a brief intro about Estonia for those of you watching who don't know that much about Estonia. Well, the present company here not included, you probably know. Estonia has been called the most digital society in the world. 99% of our state services are online. We use digital signatures every day. Every Estonian citizen has an electronic identity. And this means, you know, hassle-free taxation. You can start a company in minutes, and so forth and so forth. You can actually be an e-resident as well. And regarding the built environment, we also have a fully digital building permit process. We have what is called the building registry, which is the digital database of the built environment. And yeah, the system is used throughout Estonia and in all building permits of houses go through this one system. And as I said, it's a fully digital process, but it's kind of, you know, maybe not the perfect digital process, because it is relying a lot on PDFs, drawings, and, you know, digital paper. So where is the problem? And as already Professor Turk outlined, the productivity of the industry is very low. And this is even even worse in Estonia, where we are below the EU average. And well, the reasons for that have been explained in detail. If we can go to the next slide, please. One of the reasons, of course, is the lack of digitization. And this is another graph to really show, where construction is. It's always at the bottom or the shortest bar. And the shortest bar here does not mean good. It's not a positive thing. So, and the fragmentation was already mentioned as well by Professor Turk. And I completely agree with that. I mean, it's a huge industry. It's, billions and billions of euros. And in Estonia, it's more than 10% of the GDP. So, but a lot of it is comprised of small companies, SMEs, and this drives complexity. You have, construction projects are long. They involve a huge amount of different parties, stakeholders. You have designers, engineers, contractors, subcontractors of subcontractors, and so forth. And somewhere in between is the client, somewhere at the end is the user, the maintenance guys, and so forth. So it's a very complex thing. In Estonia, what the Ministry of Economic Affairs, who is responsible for the kind of legal framework around construction, and we are also managing the building registry. And this means we are managing the IT system for the building permit process. Our goal at Ministry is to increase productivity of the construction sector in Estonia 3 times by 2030. So it sounds ambitious, but as we are below the EU average, we're kind of catching up at first. But once we get things going, I think we can go way beyond that. And if you think about the role of government, traditionally it's related to legislation, process improvement, education, kind of these often long-term methods of how to influence a whole sector. The most direct being, of course, legal documents, but the process of issuing relevant legislation is very long and cumbersome, even in Estonia as an e-government, because it requires the whole public to be aware and to have a say in whatever is changed in legislation. But when it comes to Estonia, the good example we have is that there is also kind of a fourth main block that we can use to influence our tool and our arsenal, and it is to create an environment for secure and reliable data exchange. And for construction, this is what we're calling the e-construction platform. And the idea of the platform is to enable lossless exchange of standardized and trustworthy data between all of these different stakeholders that I mentioned before. And Estonia already has, e-government systems in place, but with this e-construction platform, we're focusing on the built environment. So again, maybe the least digitized process in the government system when you look at it from a holistic perspective. So the goal of this platform would be to connect built environment data and services. Of course, we want to make BIM, building information modeling, business as usual, because a lot of players, especially in the design part of the construction lifecycle, are already extensively taking advantage of information models. And this is not only about the nice 3D and visuals, it's about actually the data that goes in there. And we want to harness that data in government systems and to open up whatever we have related to public processes and to make them more efficient and transparent. But the most exciting opportunity is, as well as I think is with DigiPLACE itself, as it provides a framework for platforms, is that we really open up the market for new products and services. And on one hand, our job at the ministry is to open up public services, create APIs to make them accessible. But this is all to enable, the industry players who are actually creating the value to take advantage of whatever government data we have, public data we have, and to combine it with their services. So essentially, it's an integration platform, and it doesn't have a centralized or master database. So this is the kind of essence of how the e-government infrastructure in Estonia is working. So we're leveraging, the existing systems, what is called X-Road. We want to create an open platform with APIs, and an integral part of it is also the digital twin. But if we go to the next slide, so for speeding up my presentation, I've skipped a few animations. So can we go back to the last one? What you see here is kind of a representation of a classical breakdown of you have database, services, and the user interface on top. So the services, it's tough to see from this slide right now, but behind the e-construction platform, there are several different services. And there's building registry services, there's utility network services, digital twin, other public sector services. And we are building the e-construction platform using a microservice architecture. So each service itself is mostly independent, communicating via APIs, with several databases which are distributed in different systems. But the idea is that you can communicate and you can connect data between them. And what this means is that the platform itself is mostly a set of agreements. So it's not some huge information system, but the most important part of it is that we have a common language, common architecture, and common philosophy, which is to enable data sharing between different systems, to break away from these siloed way of thinking, project-based thinking, and to enable access to data regardless of where it is actually. But this means the data exchange formats, the data templates, as you will, have to be well standardized and adopted by the sector. Okay, now we can move to the next slide. A few projects that are related with the e-construction platform. The e-construction platform is kind of an umbrella for several ongoing projects we have at the ministry. So I could spend a whole day to talk about them, but I'm not, because this is not the main topic for today's workshop. The main topic today is DigiPLACE, and but some of these projects and the e-construction platform itself that we are developing in Estonia has very strong links to DigiPLACE. Regarding the digital twin, we are building up a visual, but also a semantic digital twin of the entire Estonia. We started with a prototype already 1 year ago, 2 years ago. And by the middle of next year, we hope to have all of Estonia on LOD2 level, so that's level of detail, to kind of have the basics, the infrastructure for digital twins in place. Of course, digital twins means a lot more than just, again, a model. But what we're really focusing on is that we have a dynamic model. So there's a process, an automated process behind the digital twin for updating and renewing data. So it should not ever remain static. It's constantly changing. And in the future, we hope to connect, real-time data, IoT. But this, again, probably is not something that the government should do, but we should enable access to the kind of infrastructure of digital twin, and so you can connect your services, your data, to all of the public data, because there's a lot of public data out there. We just need to bring it all together. So next slide. Another project we're working on is BIM-based permit checks. As I said, we have a fully digital permit process, but it's cumbersome. It's the data we get from there is not machine readable. It's often manual. We hope to change that by utilizing building information models, using open standards, IFC, which is the most used and the best we have at the moment. Could be better, of course, but we are emphasizing open formats because we want the development of these formats to also speed up. If we're not using them, if we're not implementing them in government systems, then we are essentially, kicking the development of these open standards in the leg. So we're hindering them. We're putting obstacles in front of them. So we want to remove those obstacles. We want to support the market in creating solutions for that rely on open standards. And we hope to get live with this solution by the middle of next year. So you can submit a BIM model and you can do already automated checks on that BIM model to see whether or not it's according to legislation, according to planning requirements, according to local authorities requirements, fire safety, etc., etc. And this is just the beginning, so it's not going to be everything at once. So we are doing it incrementally as an agile approach. So we're launching the first basic model checks, but we're building a system that is expandable, where you can build on top of it and you can create more and more checks and controls. And compliance checks. Okay, next one. Another interesting project we're involved with is classification, and this is, I think, a topic that covers a very, very wide range. The problem we have in Estonia is we don't have a common language for the construction industry, and we don't have a really kind of established classification system to that is used within the whole building life cycle. So we started looking for one, something that would be suitable for a digital process that would cover both infrastructure and buildings, and that would support the entire life cycle. We started a collaboration between many of the Nordic countries, Baltics, and other European countries, Czech Republic, for example. And where we've now ended up at, which is on the next slide, is a collaboration. I don't want to say platform, but yeah, it's a collaboration platform to say. But it's called CCI, Construction Classification International, and this is the best system we found that would be suitable for us. And the Czech guys also found this as a really good system. It is originating from Denmark. It is based on standards. What we are doing is we're creating now, together with the Czechs and the Danes, a new legal entity in Brussels, so that we can ensure that this system CCI is free to use for everybody. So there's no money in this organization. It's going to be a non-profit organization. And we're setting it up in Brussels, and we hope more and more members will join this initiative. And I know Lithuania has already decided that they're going to use CCI as the base for their national classification system, and we have a lot of interest from others as well. But moving on, that's it from me. I would like to thank you for your attention. There's a lot of other things going on. And if you have any questions, you can send them to me via email, or you can ask them here. So do we have anything on Slido? No? Great. Then I hope it was all clear. Rather short and sweet. But now I would like to see if Tony is online. Tony, are you there?
I'm here.
Great to hear you, Tony. So how's the weather in Finland?
It's good. It's sunny. It's not like September, so let's enjoy while we have the time for it.
Great. But I would like to hand over now the presentation to you. So take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I guess that I have my slides also available to be showed. Let's wait the technical guys to make happen. Yeah. Changing. So Jan, I guess that we are again telling our stories in a row, and while we are waiting my slides, it's supposed to start with here we go. All right. So like said, I'm Toni Luhti, and I'm gonna explain a little bit about the learnings what we have done here in Finland. So we have been building this kind of platform of trust, a data platform for real estate and construction industries almost 2 years from now. And instead of explaining that much what we are doing, especially with our platform, I was thinking that it would be valuable for all of you to hear what kind of things we have learned, and especially related to data, because all the platforms are gathering also data, and you can manage your processes, and you can develop new services and business models and innovate new kind of things based on the platform what you are running on and you're basing your business on. And typically when we are discussing with companies, and I'm not saying that small or mid-sized companies, but I'm saying that most of the enterprise level companies, who have been working on the real estate and construction industries for years, and whenever they are actually thinking about the digitalization or data or platforms, they are thinking about the examples what the media and the typically presentations are providing, like a Netflix or Uber or whatever, who are utilizing the modern megatrends, technological megatrends in their existing business, or creating new business models that are disrupting the existing industries. And by why I'm saying that is that typically when we are going to discuss with the companies, and whenever we are starting to talk about digitalization, they are saying, hey, we purchased an AI solution, so we have a digital strategy, or we are building up our own platform, so we are actually making this all digitalization happen, and it will be a stable part of our existing business model and so on. But actually that's quite challenging and costly. It was researched already that one platform development costs around 3 million euros. And thinking about the DigiPLACE project here, I'm guessing that it's a pretty reasonable decision to do this together and help the entire industry to actually digitize the entire industry and making it beneficial for most of the companies. And from that point of view, I think that the low-hanging fruits and the most reasonable starting points are actually the ones who we can already imagine. And from that point of view, whenever we're discussing about, which kind of companies do have data, and typically the answer for that question is that, hey, we do have data. We are finding, from our sales solution management or whatever CRM system we may have, we are saying that, hey, we are checking from the data how much sales we did on last month. And is that really, modern way to use data that your platform is gathering? No, typically, actually, you need to ask how much sales we are going to miss on next month because we are having too many internal meetings. But these kind of questions cannot be answered by the data because we don't have all the data available. And from that point of view, platforms are in the core of all business models, because platforms can actually gather all the data from all these individual sources and make it available for your decision-making solution and so on. So may I have a next slide? So this is typically the way how it starts for the companies who we are interacting with. So the top-down model. So let's say that there is a technical persons who are saying that we have the most latest and most modern AI solution available. So then the business decision guys will start to figure it out where we can get the data that we can actually feed to the AI solution, and then they will actually, get down to the question, what must be integrated? What are all the data sources? During 2019, there was over 4 billion new devices connected to internet, and all of these IoT devices and new smart devices are producing more data. And at the same time, one integration costs over 15,000 euros in Europe, and it takes up to 20 to 30 business days to make it happen. Okay, so let's say that you have a 10 individual systems that you are using to run your business. 10 systems, 10 data sources, meaning that you're gonna spend like 150,000 euros on integrations to make the data available for your AI. And that still doesn't mean that all the data is compatible, meaning that if you are buying the solutions from US or China or European countries or European service providers, they will definitely use different standards, different data models. They are mixing dots and periods on their data models, and some of them are talking about gallons and feet, and some of them are talking about centimeters and liters and so on. And you're going to waste a lot of time. You're going to waste your entire business case on integrating these new data sources and making the data compatible, and also trying to understand what kind of questions you're supposed to do towards the data. And typically the questions, like I said, are not that sophisticated, meaning that there is no competitive advantage coming from the data, or if you are not able to evaluate the business case for the data, then you're going to integrate only the sources that are essential for you to make your business decisions somehow reasonable. And on that point of view, there is no new understanding created by the data, because only the limited amount of data is available. So can I have a next slide, please? So based on the work what we have done with the enterprise level companies with our platform, we have noticed that almost every of the companies are utilizing all the megatrends, like the ecosystem thinking, so that everything cannot be done by one company, and then the platform economy, so that the platform is in the heart and all the transactions and collaboration will happen through the platform, and then API economy, so that you are actually connecting all your different technical sources together via API or services, and then the data economy. So everybody's saying that data is new oil, and so on. So you're gonna need to utilize all of these in this kind of multi-level environment, so that you can actually get the benefit from all of them. And because there was 4 billion new devices connected to internet, and you already have many smart sensors and data sources and applications and whatever available, you need to be able to connect them all so that you can actually benefit from the data and create new knowledge. And then you need to take care of the data models, and then security nowadays. And then at that point, when you have done all this, then you are able to utilize actually the digital twins and AI solution or VR or whatever. And this is a pretty big project for all of you guys individually. So what I'm saying here, that the DigiPLACE project in general is a brilliant idea to make this all together. And can I have a next slide, please? Thank you. And so when the DigiPLACE project is actually helping to create this reference architecture, so that everybody don't have to reinvent the wheel every time when they are thinking the same questions again, and whenever you have a different business model or different business needs, you can solve these needs and requirements with the same architecture and with the same thinking, like I just previously described. All of the companies are ending up to the same kind of overview of the business model, of the business stack, how I would say it. And on the last slide, I wanna describe what we are doing. So we are doing this platform of trust solution, and we have 3 value propositions. First of all, we have the self-service tools for integrations, meaning that instead of spending this 15,000 euros, you can actually connect all your data sources in a few hours or a few days instead of weeks or months. And it will be cost-free because it's built in on our platform. And then the biggest part on the data harmonizer, typically smart cities and the big environments like stadiums and libraries and shopping malls and whatever are spending tens of days or can be a month in a year to actually manually harmonize the data to be able so that they are able to utilize the data in their other solutions. And then the last part, which is something that the US companies are not doing either, is the trust engine. So we have made a research that there is 16 individual factors how you can evaluate the trust index for your data. And by that I mean that if you are using the world-class AI solution and you have a best of the best algorithm and you are feeding all your data for that algorithm in the future, make the business decisions. What happens if you cannot trust the data and you have no mechanism to actually raise the red flag? Hey, that this data looks bad. It's old. It's corrupted, or it's coming from the wrong sensor, or whatever factor you might be failing. And from that point of view, if you're running a business of 10 million or 100 million euros and you are making an automated decisions based on the data, you need to be able to trust it. And this is one of the key learnings what we have learned during past 2 years, that almost none of the companies are actually taking focus on how much they can trust on their existing data. And all the platforms are actually producing and generating more data that you can actually own and use and share with your stakeholders and ecosystems and partners. But what if it's not trustable? And that is the key question that will pop to everyone's mind in next 3 years. And with the DigiPLACE project, I think we can all solve this kind of issues together. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. I think the platform of trust is a really interesting project you're running. We have a question on Slido for you. Is the Finnish government also involved with the platform of trust development?
Yeah, we are getting. Actually, we got 19 months ago a 5 million euro funding from Business Finland, which is an institution in Finland, and also 4 weeks ago we won a deal over 2 million euros to enable smart city projects in Helsinki, Turku, and Kuopio, which is of course related heavily on the government and gathering all the data from the smart cities.
Okay, but who is behind the platform of trust initiative? I understand it's more coming from the industry, right?
Definitely, yeah. So we are 100% owned by the Vastu Group, which is actually owned by the construction and real estate industry unions and these companies. So we are heavily involved on the industry development, and we are getting targets from the board of directors who are actually giving us a prioritization for helping the industry to make these data flows happen and utilizing new service and business models.
Okay. Does anybody in the audience have further questions? Okay. If not,
right, thank you all. Feel free to shout a question via email or via LinkedIn or whatever you wish. Happy to answer.
Thanks, Tony. So we are a few minutes behind schedule. So without further ado, I would like to move on to the next presentation, which is about the reference architecture framework. And we should have online Alberto Pavan from Politecnico di Milano. Are you there, Alberto? So we're doing a quick check to see if he can hear us.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Do you listen me?
Yes. Hi, Alberto. So you are tuning in from Italy, right?
Yes, from Italy.
Okay, perfect. The floor is yours.
If I could have the first slide, I present you the work package 5 to the reference architecture frameworks, the beginning, and after I give the floor to Nicolas to the analysis of the work package 5. Next slide, please. Next one. So when we talking about a platform, obviously we talk about web or cloud, but we need to understand which kind of platform we have on the market. So if we look at to the software route, probably they think their suite of software are a platform. Or if we think about the company work with data and service, they think their browser or their server farm or their data center are a platform. But in the same time, if we look at the construction sector, probably now all the actors think a big CDE could be a platform for a construction center. And if I look at the manufacturer to the other industry, the business platform, the old business platform, typical ERP, PLM, CRM, are the platform. So when we talk about the platform in the beginning, we could understand which kind or which mix of this kind of platform could be. Next slide, please. In the other way, we need to understand which kind of knowledge we have and we need and will have in the future, because in the past normally we had something like a price of knowledge. They produce knowledge and they put in the storage in a book. And so produce information is really hard and expensive, and so you trust all information in the book is true, and you are confident with all the information. But the problem is you need the book or you need to memorize your information because the book is far of you. And in sorry, you could back to okay. But now we have a different world with the digitalization. So you have an access, your smartphone is an access to all the information. So you don't need to memorize the information because you could have instantly, but you could add all kind of instantly. And so all the information could produce any users and any consumer. So you don't have to trust in this kind of information. What say before than the speaker talking before me. And what we have to look at in the end is the value of this information, because the information have a different value, but this information is not good if is a value only for who manage this information. If you want a platform win-to-win, we need a lot of information, but we need all the market will be wants to share their information. And so there is a problem of privacy, and in the other way, the problem of copyright. So how I could persuade all the industry to give me the information near the board of copyright, because I need more information to work over with, I don't know, with artificial intelligence to understand which kind of information is really true and which kind of information is not true, because it's different. The access is different, the produce of the making of this kind of information. So the next slide, please. So in the starting of the DigiPLACE project, when we when we write calls, we think one flow of information starting from the market going probably to the national platform, because France have Croquis, UK have NBS, and so probably the flow is the market information going to the national platform, and all national platform, the future national platform, go to the European platform and back to the market again. And in the next slide, please. The other flow is the flows, information coming from the user and so from the actors, and filtered by national and European information, arrive to two kind of different market, because we have two strong market in our sector. So we have a public market and a private market, and so DigiPLACE is the only one future platform have the member states inside the beneficiary, because our market is really different than the other normally manufacturer market. So the presence of member states and the public market is really important for us. The next slide, please. Next one. So we try to understand this word, and to understand with this word, we make a big brainstorming to analyze the problem. So in the bottom, the digital integration, what we need, in the bottom, the level, which kind of level, Europe, national, single building, single product, and so on. And the focus, the fourth focus is language, rule, market, and products and servers. Next slide, please. Okay, this is a big map of any idea we have to look at to understand which kind of platform probably will we make a reference architecture. Next slide. Starting from language and rule. So the language is natural language and IT language. So we need probably a domain, and probably we need a new ontology, but and so semantic web, link and data, and so on and so on. But in the other way, we need the operational collaboration of the IT, and so we need which kind of open language coming from IT. And in the bottom, the rule, we have the standards, so the technical rules and the law, and so the importance of member states. And we need to integrate the standard and the law. We need a new accessibility of the standard and law, and obviously we need to check what all the sector produce to standard and to law. So we need the requirements, but we need a computational requirements where the machine could understand what we will do and could correct what is wrong or not. So all the problem is not only clash detection typically of our sector, but the real new way is code checking. So how the machine could understand the rule and the standard and could checking the rule and the standard automatically to all the sector produce in terms of the product, in terms of design too. The other way is product, service, and market. And so the product, service, the industry, manufacturing, building, doors, and so on, and construction sector, before windows, doors, and so on. And in construction, the builders, building and infrastructure. So we have an object of our market, but we have two markets. We saw before, public and private, and so the subject is different subject. Is the public subject and private subject, and they mix the object of our sector to the subject inside the action. And so probably we need a new to have in the other right a digital object of our sector. We need a new class and new attribute. So a contract is a class, is an object too, like a window, and a worker is an object too, like a window or like a contract. And so we need to produce a digital twin of the asset, so the asset model, and we need to updating all kind of data because we have a strange product with a very long life cycle, and we need the data not only in 3 years, the normal life of a new product of the manufacturer, 3-5 years, but we need a data coming and operating in 100 years, in Italy 500, 1000 years, and we have any kind of difference farm because our products is our farm. So for us, Industry 5.0 is really particularly approach because we work inside our product for a long time, for 100 years, for 200 years, for 500 years, because we make a renovation, refurbishment, manufacturing, and so on. So a data from Industry 4.0 for us is really different than the manufacturing. Well, in the last the digital integration, when we think about digital integration in our sector, we talking about open data, and so be smart and W3G, but we have to talk about which kind of database we need. So we need a related database, or we need an object database, or we need a graph database because we work with big data, and so which kind of database and DBMS we need, which kind of security we need. So we have to talk to blockchain, to copyright, to privacy, to a new smart contract, and for probably a digital cadastre, European cadastre, because all real estates are in the back of the financing in all the world, and so the real estate is a great part of the financing world, and probably in the future we need not only a local cadastre but a cadastre of all the building inside in Europe, and in the end which kind of digital integration we need in business management. So as I talked before, PLM, ERP, but object library, CDE, and GIS, because our products stay over the land or stay over a land in a different border, so in the different country infrastructure. And so our platform is a building platform, is an information infrastructure platform, but is a GIS platform too. And in the end, next slides please, which kind of level, because we are probably we will became a European platform, but a European platform coming from member state platform, and this platform take the data inside this all different environment, and this environment is building, is infrastructure, but is product too. So the level of the information is really different. You need information from infrastructure and how to route, but you need information for a single building, and you need information for a single wall, windows inside a single building. So the number of the information and the number of upgrading, looking in the bottom, IoT, and so upgrading of this kind of data is a lot, and is shared in a really long time. So our problem is our product have really a long cycle life, different than all the other industry and the manufacturer too. So to look at what this is, the brainstorming, the starting point, and the analysis, to look at to the analysis we will do, and now we do. I give the floor to Nicolas Naville.
Nicolas, are you there with us?
You hear me? Yeah.
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Alberto. for introducing all these key concepts for the reasoning about platform architectures. I'm Nicolas Naville from CSTB in France, and we are leading the work package 5 of the project, which is about defining the reference architecture framework of DigiPLACE platforms. So after this presentation by Alberto, I just wanted to take one step back to explain to you how we are currently proceeding to define this reference architecture framework. So next slide, please. First of all, introducing the main outputs of DigiPLACE project. They are structured along those three pillars, which are first defining the key use cases and high-level specifications of the platforms, then defining the reference architecture framework, and then the last work package of the project, as introduced by Ziga, will be defining the strategy roadmap of DigiPLACE. To put it in simple words, the specifications and use case analysis, no, back again, please. The use case and specifications is about defining the vision of the digital transformation of the European construction industry in order to achieve the core objectives of the digital transformation. So this is a little bit, yes, the vision that needs to be defined and also shared among stakeholders, which is also a key aspect of the project, reaching a shared consensus. And then the reference architecture framework is the required architectures that we need to support this vision in terms of digital tools, services, and platforms, in terms of interoperability, data and knowledge sharing, and so on and so forth. And then the strategy roadmap will be defining how to get there from the current situation in terms of research efforts, pilot projects, regulations, deployment of new services, and most certainly required European calls in the following years. Next slide, please. So let's focus on this reference architecture framework and what it's going to be. As was already discussed extensively in the project, we are not only building a new European website, let's say it like that, but rather defining a comprehensive set of common guidelines for building, implementing, and deploying digital platforms for the construction sector across Europe, be they public or private, local or European. So it's more like a meta platform than just a single platform. And these guidelines can be of different types. We will have general guidelines for implementing digital platforms about interoperability, using open standards, data security and privacy. We will have a referential of tools and services to be developed or generalized in order to support key use cases. And certainly we will also have a special focus on required public services and regulations, both at EU and member state levels. And as part of this third category, we could propose to have a proper European platform, and that certainly will be part of the output of DigiPLACE, but not the only output. Next slide, please. This is just to remind you how this definition of high-level specifications and the reference architecture framework are based on the previous works of the project. So mainly the work package 3, which was about analyzing the existing platforms and the level of digitalization. And work package 4, which was about, and which is still about, understanding the needs and expectations of stakeholders, particularly SMEs, and trying to identify the measures that are necessary to mitigate the barriers to digitalization. So we are using all those, all the outputs of these previous works. Next slide, please. Okay, so what is the strategy that we are deploying to share this common vision of the digital transformation of the sector? We identified 5 areas of concern, of discussion, which are the following. First one is about common language, interoperability and standards. We have one about rules and public services, one about data and knowledge sharing, one about environmental performance, and the last one, but not least, is about business, market, and collaboration. So for these 5 areas, we had 5 working groups. And the key point to have in mind is that those are not independent areas, but rather different points of view to address the whole landscape of digital transformation. And in terms of structure of our work, for each area we identified several topics, and for each topic we have several use cases, or sometimes they are not proper use cases but rather subtopics, because it's not easy as we have such a wide landscape of issues to address. It's not always possible to go down to the scale of the use cases and to the level of details required to describe use cases. So next slide, please. Just to give you an example of the way we are working, we are reasoning at the same time on the construction sector use cases and this vision of the transformation of the sector, and on the required architecture to support this, or on reference architecture framework guidelines that will be proposed to support these use cases. So I have an example on next slide, which is about one of the key use cases that Jan talked about for Estonia platform e-construction is about digital building permit. So this would be the use case. For example, digitalized building permit application using BIM models and automated rules checking. So this is the use case. And we will be thinking also in terms of guidelines. Here are just some examples. So by the use of OpenBIM standards, dedicated model view definitions, the need of ontologies for urban planning rules, and the required public tools and services to support this use case. So this is an example. And now I'll try to keep short because the time is running. But just a few words about each of the 5 areas. So this very important one is about common language, interoperability, and standards. Here, the general approach that we are following is not to replace standardization bodies, of course, but rather provide common guidelines for successful standards implementation, about interoperable product databases, link between BIM and IoT, open BIM implementation guidelines, and promote the use of open standards, or again, harmonize data requirements in public or private contracts. On next slides, I have some key aspects that went out of the discussions. I won't detail everything, but maybe the first and the last one are interesting. The first one is we agreed that there is a need to rely as much as possible on semantic standards and go beyond a syntax standards that we have today. So this is very important. And the last one, also the need to fill the gap between the standardization bodies, the experts on one side, and the end users on the other side, because we feel there is still an important gap here. And so maybe we'll try to define a process for end users to engage more to help develop the standard and help create user guides for end users. So this is a process to put in place. Next slide. So here, the area about rules and public services, the idea is to address all the interactions of the construction projects with the administration. So maybe this area would be close to what the e-construction platform in Estonia is. Also address public procurement or regulatory issues. And among the topics that we are addressing are digitalized building permits, use of BIM in public procurement, coordination of national regulations, BLOG and digital building logbook, and also checkers of rules. One other that I didn't mention in the slide, but which is present in e-construction, is the idea to develop a digital twin at urban scale or even national scale, like in Estonia. Next slide, please. This area is about data and knowledge sharing. So here, the idea is to discuss all the issues about the sharing of data, be it at product scale, at project scale, or even at larger scale. So sharing of both public but also private data. And try to see how data analytic tools could be used, and also artificial intelligence could be used in the construction industry. We're also addressing best practices and knowledge transfer, and particularly about digital processes. Next slide, please. Environmental performance. This one is rather transversal to the other areas, but we decided to have a special focus on it as it is really important also for the European Commission and obviously for all the stakeholders. So we have a strong overlap with other areas. And among the topics addressed are environmental product data for BIM, generalization of life cycle assessment, calculation of energy performance certificates, circularity, and the use of digital tools to help circularity. And finally, also trying to promote levels framework and the sharing of environmental performance data. We always have in mind to have this connection with other European initiatives, as it is one of the objectives of DigiPLACE project. And the last area, and I will finish with this one, is about business market and collaboration. So in this area, we are addressing the digital transformation of the construction project based on the project life cycle. We are addressing also collaborative platforms and common data environments and contracts and market issues. So this last one is very wide scope. We addressed common data environment implementation, BIM services, marketplaces, and access to BIM services, digital supply chain, and finally, contractualization and smart contracts issues. For this one, I entered into more details about the use cases or subtopics that were discussed during our workshop. Maybe as we don't have much time, I will skip this or just give 2 or 3 examples and then jump to my conclusion. Maybe I take as example the digital supply chain topic. After our discussions, we identified the need to define a BIM approach in the call for tender phase, to also have guidelines for e-catalogs and integration of manufacturers' BIM objects into BIM models, obviously, and also address the related transformations of the supply chain, address the link between design and manufacturing, and finally, also don't forget the construction equipment data and their integration in digital supply chain. So this is just an example. As you see, we have many topics and many subtopics. Here, I'll just take one example in this one, which is, yes, one that I already cited, but it's quite important here. It's about the digitalized building permit application and delivery with automated rules checking that we find in this category here, related to the construction project lifecycle. So maybe now I can move to the next slide. And just two examples here. In this last category, we have the evolutions of ERP and CRM tools, which are also important to address the digitalization of the sector. And one other key use case, which is about sharing data of big public infrastructures. We already mentioned urban scale digital twin, but here it's also about creating repositories of data for all large public infrastructures. We already see some initiatives in countries such as Italy or maybe Estonia, but this is also one of the key possible use cases. So sorry for trying to keep short for this. It was very synthetic. The next steps will be first from the results of the workshops that we had in the beginning of the summer. We have till the end of September to define these platform specifications and submit them to the European Commission. Then we will need to have a new round of consultation of the community of stakeholders on these specifications. So once we have a more structured vision and more synthetic, we will definitely share it with the community and trying to get feedback on it. And then work on deliverable 5.2, which is the proper reference architecture framework, and we will have to complete it by the end of 2020. So the work is currently starting. And then in the beginning of 2021, we will work on the strategy roadmap. So I finish with this.
Thank you, Nicholas. One question that popped into my mind was when you were giving the presentation. It was a really good overview of practically all the initiatives or ongoing approaches towards digitization of the construction industry. It's quite a kind of a vast sea of different aspects and different perspectives. Is DigiPLACE project really going to kind of address all of them, or is there going to be a more narrow focus towards one or the other?
I would say the way I see it is one of the interests of DigiPLACE is to provide this comprehensive vision. I think it's quite an important output to try to provide a comprehensive vision. And then the second answer is that the strategy roadmap is key for answering this question. DigiPLACE is not going to answer all the questions and the issues right away, but to propose a strategy roadmap to get there from the current situation, as I explained, in several steps, and identifying the areas and topics that need to be analyzed in more details and that require further research projects, further European calls, further collective work. So we are not solving everything right away. This is quite important. And then a third answer to your question is that despite what I just said, we are going to try to be as specific as possible on some key use cases. So trying to select maybe 10, 15, I don't know, use cases, and trying to develop them a little bit more. To make sure not to remain only strategic, but also practical about the things that need to be done in the following years.
Okay, thank you, Nicolas, and Alberto as well. So we're a little bit behind our schedule, but we're going to break for lunch now. And after lunch, we're going to be back at 1:15, 1:20 Estonian time. That's 12:15, 12:20 CET. And then we're going to take a look at the strategic roadmap. And Alan will hopefully introduce this for us. So thanks for tuning in, and see you in 45 minutes about. And welcome back to the DigiPLACE regional workshop here in Tallinn, Estonia, with a small audience here in Swiss Hotel, but a bigger audience online watching us through the magic of internet. And this session and today's workshop is being recorded as well. So if you didn't have a chance to view it live, you can view the recording afterwards and get the information on demand. But we have a couple of more hours to entertain you with digital construction topics. In this part of the session, we're going to look at the strategic roadmap of DigiPLACE, and then also the community of stakeholders, how you can be a part of the DigiPLACE project, have your say and be more involved. And we're also going to be doing some brainstorming questions and answers. So that is your opportunity to join the discussion at slido.com with the keyword DigiPLACE. So if, we can later show a slide about that as well. But it's really simple. Just go to slido.com and enter the hashtag DigiPLACE. So you'll be able to then submit your questions online, and we will take them later on in the schedule and try to answer them. But now I would like to hand over the digital floor to Alain Zarli. Are you with us? Can you hear us?
Hello, Jan. Can you hear me?
Yes, Alain, I can hear you loud and clear. So where are you tuning in from?
Yes. Well, I can't really complain. I'm on the French Riviera, but indeed working at home. But I'm still very, very disappointed not being with you. You know why. We have been exchanging many mails about the current situation, and unfortunately, we have to deal with it. So, but anyway, I'm very, very pleased to introduce you and the audience, and also all our colleagues who are connected to this strategy that we are trying to elaborate, and maybe at the same time that maybe we can start, with the slides. I just would like to mention first that I'm presenting it also on behalf of Sarah Gotti and Brigitte Jacquemont from the Ministry of Construction, who are, by the way, the work package leader in DigiPLACE of this related to the strategic roadmap. And also that the work is going to really and deeply, tangibly start from 1st of September. So, of course, all the elements and ingredients of my presentation are, of course, subject to future discussions and are challengeable. So this is something which is very, very important to keep in mind. Maybe very, very quickly to introduce, based on the previous presentations, understanding, what is the main technical out? When I said technical, it's about the reference architecture framework. We view it as, let's say, kind of delimited, deployable, and which is evolving is a very, very important term here. Evolving set of specifications and also development and deployment guidance that should allow the progressive generalization of digital platforms, as well as connected applications and services. And this reference architecture framework is going to be elaborated on top of some key principles. A first one is definitely the principle of a commonly agreed minimal but sufficient interoperability levels in terms of data and software for all the platforms and applications that will be compliant with this reference architecture framework. The fact that, of course, first of all, we don't plan to start from scratch, but we do believe that this is on the common standards, the current ones and the future ones, forming potentially a baseline for the current state of the art of existing solutions, but also at the technical commitment to identify needs and required evolution of those standards. And also, well, as it has been already raised and very nicely introduced by Giga in his presentation, this is a matter of kind of a generalized access to data spaces, infrastructures and platforms and catalogs of services that could be available to all. And with services, of course, we think about many different types of services. You can think about a very simple services that will allow you to connect to some database of related or describing and providing information about, for instance, the French or the German national regulations related to energy efficiency, for instance, building. That could be access to simulation platforms. That could be even more complex services. That could be, for instance, linking to a digital twin container to which is kind of more advanced service where you will provide your BIM data and as well as your dynamic data coming from sensors, for instance, and where you will access, for instance, in this container to a digital twin of your building or infrastructure, of your built asset. It could be different types of services. And of course, as it was introduced by Nicolas in his presentation, it's going to rely, of course, on the identification of those various use cases that we have started to develop in package 5. But it must be clear that all those, and this may be another answer to your question, to your last question, Jan, before the lunch break, it's not the intention of DigiPLACE, of course, to develop platforms, but also to details necessarily the potential implementation for all the use cases that have been identified. Those use cases are, of course, for us useful to identify what are the key elements and ingredients of a RAF-compliant digital platform, and to identify, of course, what will be all use cases and scenarios that such platforms should serve in the future. Next one, please. So indeed, when we refer to this DigiPLACE strategy roadmap for future achievements, I would say that it's a kind of, well, how to say this? Maybe a cocktail of future research, but also governance and stakeholder engagement. And what is very important is that in Work Package 3 and Work Package 4 of DigiPLACE, the role of them were to feed, I would say, the reference architecture, framework specification, and the strategy. This is that this strategy is also considering many of the fundamental ingredients are on hand in terms of research and innovation as well. So what is going to be this strategy roadmap that we intend to develop, by the way, with all of you, not only just a few bunch of partners in DigiPLACE. It's really with all of you and the DigiPLACE community of interest. Well, it's a set of delimited, measurable, and time-stamped actions with the associated instruments that we can think of, supporting a generalization of the deployment and use of those digital platforms in Europe. And I put by 2027 because, well, this in some way also is linked to the end of the upcoming framework program, which is Horizon Europe. But of course, the idea is to develop this over the next decade and probably beyond. There are various actions that we can think of. Once again, what is rather new, I would say, in DigiPLACE is this collaboration between many construction stakeholders from various levels, European, national, including regional ones, with associations and researchers as well. And this is probably the very first time in my professional life, more than 30 years, that I've seen such grouping of so many associations and stakeholders from the construction sector. So the idea that, of course, is that we want to leverage on this association, and this should be the basis for nurturing the establishment of a common market of digital platforms and apps. The reference architecture framework is about really this establishment and supporting the establishment of this common market of digital platform. It's about, of course, providing guiding principles for data producers, data publishers, services publishers, and services consumer. It's also a little bit about potential interconnection about various levels of information data spaces and platforms throughout Europe. Should they be, by the way, at a European level or a national or a more regional or local level? And once again, it's very important to understand that DigiPLACE is not about specifying and even more implementing one platform or the only digital platform. It's really about erecting, leveraging, I would say, also on the existing platform and services, and see how they can be, I would say, aggregate in some more harmonized way. Another point is that we, based on this reference architecture, it seems to us that it's very important to have a European set of experimental projects and facilities implementing and assessing the rough set of specification. And of course, relying on a representative set of business scenarios. And this was also the objective, of course, of the various use cases that have been introduced by Nicolas in his presentation before lunch. And there is something which is also very important. I mentioned that our goal is not to have a prescriptive approach, but rather a European level agreed holistic reference vision and framework with, of course, technical process and regulatory boundaries and guidance that embraces all the separate elements contributing to the future construction digital platforms, but also with supporting a massive behavioral adoption change, because it can't be only from about technical improvements in this specific context. So developing awareness, expertise, skills related to the platforms and services is going to be, of course, of paramount importance. Should it be, and I would say on both sides, users of the digital platforms, but also those who are going to feed those digital platforms with third-party software. Next one, please. So imagine for the time being that we can develop this DigiPLACE strategy according to, let's say, what we have called for the time being a three cornerstones approach. Promote and network, develop and deploy, experiment and capitalize. So what does that mean, roughly speaking, and very, very quickly? And once again, this will be, of course, refined and developed in the near future. Promote and work. We are, in the context of DigiPLACE, of course, having this DigiPLACE community of interest that will be introduced by Luigi in the next presentation. The intention and the need, from my point of view, is that we have to have a long-lasting stakeholders ecosystem or forum to promote and continuously refine the DigiPLACE route. At the end of DigiPLACE, in May next year, there will be, of course, a full specification. But this specification of the reference architectures aims to be, of course, continuously refined and also based on some experiment that we will leverage on this architecture. Another point is developing the graph of emerging or future initiatives and alliances, potentially dedicated to digital platforms, apps, and services. I've been really impressed by the entertaining presentations by Jan and Tony this morning exhibiting that really Estonia and Finland are quite advanced in developing platforms and digital tools. The idea, of course, to start from scratch. It's about updating and making them potentially compliant so that those platforms can, of course, interoperate among them and also interoperate with other platforms throughout Europe. And it's also, of course, leveraging on the experience gain with the development of those platforms in Estonia and Finland, and of course elsewhere, because there are all other developments in Germany, in France, in Italy, and elsewhere. So it's about promoting and networking, and this is, from our point of view, key in really developing and generalizing the use of digital platforms. Developing and deploy, because you also, we need probably to apply the principle of learning by doing. So that means, once again, building those digital platforms and common data spaces, deploying large-scale pilots. I will be back to that later on. Should it be, by the way, at a European level or a member state level or even regional or private initiatives? And also trying at the same times in the coming years to erect a kind of EU repository of common digital commons that will be instrumental in also in this generalization and ease of access to data and services through platforms. And this is about common data ontologies, this is about reference data libraries, this is about data sharing protocols, some of them already being developed in alliances, like, for instance, building source, or the smart buildings alliances in Europe, and some others as well. But the idea is really also to erect this repository of digital commons, and this seems to be very, very important. And then it's about experimenting and capitalizing, and that would be, for instance, as an example, but once again, the list is not exhaustive. It could be about providing an observatory of large-scale pilots and digital innovation hubs throughout Europe. But that could be as well, of course, in terms of capitalizing, in terms of contributing, of course, to national regulation directives and to standard developing organizations. Next one, please. So as I mentioned to you, we are just starting, indeed, working on that. We have already, of course, some ideas that we are going to structure. If I refer only on just on one example, which is about developing and deploying, more specifically about the item deploying large-scale pilot at level of European, at a European level, we have already started to discuss with the European Commission, which is, of course, under preparation of the Horizon Europe Framework Program and the first calls, by the way, in 2021-2022. And we have started to discuss about some potential future actions at a European level for now providing large-scale pilots that will be, of course, that will play the role of demonstrators as well to deploy, experiment, and the use and monitoring of impact of RAF, of DigiPLACE compliant platforms. And also based on the various development on work package 3 and 4 and the use case scenarios, we have already suggested a kind of a structure for upcoming calls starting in 2021 up to 2025, potentially, in terms of developing innovation actions for having experimentation of those construction digital platforms and common data spaces. And we have considered that could be, in particular, development of those platforms in key areas, which are, for instance, development of marketplaces or procurement places or solutions for smart working. And that would be really the elaboration of some platforms with the intention, of course, of having demonstrators that should be, by the way, pan-European demonstrators and platforms. And one can imagine that in the next step, we will develop more digital services, a real large-scale portfolio services on top of those platforms, and also leverage on various databases to erect construction data spaces at national level or at AU level. Next one, please. So just, and not to get into the details, because I do believe that this is already the end of my presentation, but as you can imagine, yes, as I mentioned to you, well, we imagine this digital marketplace related to all the access to IoT data, digital twins, construction products, and so on and so forth. Digital procurement place, which is of course of real interest for public administration. Yeah, you have exhibited in your presentation that Estonia is already hard on this and is quite advanced. So I do believe that, for instance, we can capitalize and also leverage on your experience and your preliminary development on that. But that should be, of course, developed throughout Europe. And also, for instance, on smart working, in terms of smart approach to site working, knowledge, safety, construction 4.0, as it was introduced by Ziga, and so on and so forth. These are examples that should probably allow us to have large-scale pilots very, very soon, funded hopefully by the European Commission, to demonstrate and really kickstart, I would say, the generalization of those platforms. At the conclusion, next slide, please. At a very quick conclusion, in terms of the timeline of actions within DigiPLACE and Work Package 6, as a reminder, Work Package 6 is responsible for this strategy roadmap. We have started, as exhibited, some brainstorming. The work package is now starting from the 1st of September. We expect all of you, of course, to be part and to provide and to challenge us and to provide us with your ideas, your views, your criticism as well. On some consolidated scenarios for the deployment of those platforms through online consultation, also, of course, through interactions with the community of interest and with the advisory board, and along those various deadlines that have been that we have inserted on this slide, just to give you a snapshot of what is the ongoing work in this strategy roadmap. So I will probably finish here my presentation. I don't know if there are any questions right now, or maybe if we keep them at the end for the question and answer session. Thank you very much, Jan.
Thank you, Alain. That was a really good overview of the roadmap. And we have some questions indeed, but let's keep them to the question and answer section. I would first like to see if Luigi is online with us, so he can talk a little bit about the community involvement and how everybody watching this broadcast or recording later on can be a part of DigiPLACE project. So, Luigi, are you there?
Yes, here I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and see you loud and clear. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm sorry I cannot be there with you today. I was really looking forward to this because events are very important, not only to inform about the state of the affairs of the project and how the work is going on, but also as an opportunity to meet potential stakeholders that could be part of the work of our project in the months to come, and perhaps in the years to come, because as you have seen from the presentation of Alain, the strategic view of the future digitization of the construction is quite important, and our idea is this community should not only be part of this project, but also be involved in future activities that will be launched by the Commission, hopefully in Horizon Europe as Digital Europe. As you've seen, the sector is, as you know, the sector is huge and very complex. And this is one of the challenges of this project. And that's why the community for us is particularly important, is because we need to make sure that all the different the different stakeholders are involved, and that we can take in consideration their needs, expectations, and problems that could arise through the development of a digital strategy for construction, in particular with platforms. As you see, this is, I'm coordinating as Fede Costruzioni, this work package 2, that is the one in charge of the long-term community building, also that includes the community of stakeholders and also the advisory board, and that is it's EXA that is, it's FIEC that is coordinating the advisory board activities. So it's quite complex. Our objectives, as you can see, is to, first of all, to inform you about the project objectives, and now not the very preliminary outcomes, but also the outcomes of the project. As you've seen, a lot of work has been done. And so the first thing is that you need to know what this all is about. And then clearly there is an important role that the stakeholder can have, is participating to the activities, and has been said also by Alain and other speakers before, there are ongoing activities that will involve whoever will be registered as a stakeholder in our community of stakeholders, but also there will be a role in disseminating the results of the project, the reference architecture. The use of the reference architecture will be very important to make successful the digitization of the construction sector in Europe and also member states level. So the community could really help us into promoting the results, the activities, the reference architecture in the years to come. Also, as I said before, in my opinion, participating also and be involved into the different new projects and activities that will follow. As you've seen, the CSA, that is DigiPLACE, is a small piece. I always say is the foot into the door for the activities that the Commission and the strategy that the Commission is carrying on industrial platforms, and construction luckily is there, but it will be even more there in the years to come if what we are proposing and the quality of work that we will doing with this first CSA will be appreciated by the Commission, as we hope. And so there will be many more opportunities and funding that will be then available to develop the activities that will start now with this DigiPLACE project. And the other thing is clearly the influence, because as you know, I mean, construction is very important, is large, represents high percentages of GDPs in many countries, but is not alone. There is somehow a competition between the different sectors to have the full attention of the European and national and perhaps regional authorities, so that this sector is kept as a priority sector in the activities and the funding also that will be necessary to support the digitization of this. And as you know, it is made not only by large and important companies, but a huge number of small and micro enterprises. And the fact that the sector will be taken as a priority sector would help also to have industrial policies to support the digitization of the sector, perhaps activities like the development of digital hubs at national and European levels, also funding that could be given to companies to invest into digitization, etc. So this role of influencing, I think, is very important to to assure that the sector is properly supported and has the right attention. I want also to mention that, as you know, there is a huge work that has been carried on in every member state about the recovery fund. You know, is a very big fund that will be given to countries to push the growth of their economies after the effect of the negative effect of the COVID crisis. And so also, I think that construction projects should be at the core of these priorities at member states level and European level. I think that is important. So our community of stakeholders can also help us in keeping the central attention on construction on this. Let's go to the following slide. Clearly, the complexity of the sector as far as the community of stakeholders needed also to be structured in a certain way. And so that's why we have identified these clusters. So the whole community is divided in categories that are the same categories that you are finding when you register to the community of stakeholders, so that you can define in which group you belong to. One thing I'd like to point out in here is that, and is particularly important for the construction sector, is the public clients dimension that we have included, because in our sector, the public market is huge, and also is a sector that has a lot of, the impact of regulations is quite high. And so I think that is very important, and that is why also in the consortium we have 3 member states ministries taking part in a consortium that are from Italy, France, and Germany, is because this public dimension is very important. That's why it is included into the community of stakeholders. So when you register, and I don't say if, but I say when, because I like to see also from this meeting of today a good result that we had in Bologna at a startup meeting with a lot of registration in the community. When you register, look at this list carefully so that you can put yourself in the right category. Let's go to next, please. Next slide. Okay, as you see, we need a more balanced presence also country-wise to the community. I think that we are above 300 already registered, but we need many more. And as you see, I was talking about the conferences. Unfortunately, the COVID pandemic hasn't helped us in this, because we had planned many public events, and so Riccardo Viaggi was a bit frustrated in this, because we have organized and then we had to cancel them one after the other. But so we really have to count on now on these online and physical events to increase the number of registration to the community, and we would like to see a good country representation, also because clearly every country has its own particularities and differences, and we wouldn't like to. So we would like many more members coming from other countries besides Italy. Next, please. So this is, as I say, our on the internet site of DigiPLACE. You can find a direct link to the community and how to subscribe. You can also, I think is next slide, you can also take a picture of the QR code and you go straight into the registration platform. That is very, very easy. So as when I was living in the States, there were all these evangelists that were asking to pledge. So I'm asking you to do it now, to pledge now your interest into DigiPLACE. I think that the presentation of my colleagues that spoke before me were very, very interesting, and they were giving you an idea on how this first foot into the door is really important for the future of the construction sector in Europe. If you go into this, then you will see that you have to provide your name, your email address, eventually your phone if you want, the country, which organization you are part to, so that we can contact you. And then I think the very important thing, and I finish with this, is on the privacy side, you have to select, there are 3 levels of engagement. So the basic one is that you accept that we send you a newsletter, an info about the project. The second level is that you accept to be invited to events like the events of today, or inform about initiatives. And the third level is the one where we will be really talking to you quite often, is to be willing to accept to be sent questionnaires or invited to interviews or video interviews about your view on the different activities of the project. Now, as the project is entering the last phase of its activities, I think that it is there are many, many opportunities for you to be an active part of this community. As you have seen, Work Package 5.1 is defining the platform specification, and there will be a consultation at the end of this month. So if you register now, you will be involved into this. And then there is the whole work of the strategic roadmap that is really, really important, not only to design, to participate, to what will be these priorities, but also to know that there will be opportunities that will eventually can involve you directly in the years to come if we work well with Horizon Europe and Digital Europe programs. Thank you very much, and I'm at your disposal for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Luigi. And I would just like to reiterate what Luigi just said, that take part and join the community. And even though this is especially a call out to the Estonian viewers, Finnish Nordic viewers from the Baltics, to really get involved in this project, because it might seem, it's from something far away, but it's not really. It's a really great group of people who have a very ambitious goal and objective, and I think it's worth investing a little bit of time in it, because whether we like it or not, this project is going to influence probably the way Europe is going to go forward with digital construction. It is something that the European Commission is very closely looking at and waiting for the results, the recommendations of this project, what will then come next. So be involved and have your say, and be part of the team, and don't just look on the sidelines at what's going on and then later say, oh, well, they did something that, well, that's not right and we shouldn't do that. But you should do it now, because all of this feedback is extremely valuable and very welcome.
Yeah.
So now on to the most interesting part, I think, of the presentation or this day is the Q&A session. So we have 20 minutes, about maybe half an hour left to go through the questions you are eager to ask, everybody, and a lot of people have already entered questions on Slido. So if we can bring up the Slido slide once more, just go to the website slido.com and look for the hashtag DigiPLACE, and you'll be able to enter your questions live to our panelists. And let's see who is online. We should have online most of the speakers from here today. And it's going to go like this, that I will moderate the question and answer sessions. I will try to direct questions to the panelists. Some questions here are already directed to a specific person, but I think we'll try and do as much of a discussion panel as is possible using this digital format. So, but can we bring up the screen with the participants? Would be nice to see the faces. All right. So we have already their familiar faces, and also one more person who didn't get to present. Maybe she can introduce herself. And there's Mimo as well, of course. But I think, can you just say hi from, I think also from France?
Hi.
Sarah?
Yes, I'm Sarah Rangotti from the French Ministry. Alain told already that we are part of the Work Package 6 in the DigiPLACE project. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you well, Sarah. Thank you for joining us. And also, as a new person, Mimo, can you just say hi so we can hear you online?
Hi everyone, and thank you for this presentations. It has been really wonderful to hear all the presentations.
Okay, great. So let's go through the questions. Can we bring up the Slido questions screen? So I will just highlight. Perfect. So I've highlighted the question to Alberto. The question is very simple. Can you share the mind map which you were presenting? So I'm guessing the answer is yes.
Yes, probably only after send the delivery to the European Commission. So maybe we have to wait only 1 month, not more. And after, I think we could share. Nothing problem. Maybe we could put on the website of the project.
Mm-hmm. Is it okay to share the slides from today's presentation as well?
Yes, like today's presentation, yes, why not?
Okay, we will put the slides up on the website as well, and send an email out to all the participants. So next question is directed at Jan. So the question is, can you specify the role and the objectives of the Construction Classification International, and how does this fit with the EU BIM task group? So this is a question for Ricardo. Thank you. A very good question. The role of CCI, Construction Classification International, is to really better enhance international collaboration, especially when it comes to the common language for construction. Now, classification is just one part that we can look at. So it's not the whole picture. So if we're talking about data in the construction industry, classification is kind of giving the frame. So we're looking at the same location, same high-level objects. But when it comes down to the properties and the very details regarding materials and all of that, then we are talking also about data templates, and which is maybe not specifically part of the classification. But to tie all the information together, we need a classification that describes the whole system, the whole complex. And this is what we try to do with CCI. And it's an open collaboration. Everybody's welcome to join. And we want to make sure it is always free to use it. And as I said, we started with a few countries already. And once we get the non-profit entity established in Brussels, we will be more actively communicating this, because it's rather still in the beginning, but we are implementing it on a government level in Estonia, in Czechia, in Lithuania, and in Denmark already. And another part of the question was, how does it link back to the EU BIM task group? The EU BIM task group, for those of you who don't know, is a group of great people who come together occasionally and think how to utilize BIM and digital construction throughout Europe. And I'm proud to say I'm a member of the EU BIM task group as well. The role of the EU BIM task group is, in my view, on a higher level, looking at more topics than just BIM, but throughout the entire building life cycle, digital twins, many of the topics that are already covered here with DigiPLACE as well. And a lot of people involved in DigiPLACE are also involved with the EU BIM task group. But the EU BIM task group has been actively promoting the use of BIM for years already. And it's kind of an advisor also to the European Commission. And one of those activities is the EU BIM task group does is supports open standards and the use of common standards, and classification is one part of that. And but it's not actively kind of directing all of these activities. It's kind of connecting the people and the organizations with the appropriate activities. But yeah, if you want to know more about EU BIM task group, go to eubim.eu. So that's their website. But let's take another question. There's a question again about classification. Why do we need classifications? There's a risk to that other countries stick to OmniClass or other types of classifications. That's true. There's lots of classifications, and that's the problem we face, because and that's what we're trying to solve with CCI, because we see that Estonia needed a new classification system, and we shouldn't invent a new one. We shouldn't start with our another classification system. So we went out and looked for anything that we could use, and that's how CCI became about. And we hope that more and more organizations adopt this. After all, it's based on standards. And, it's a very philosophical question why we need a classification. Whether we acknowledge it or not, we classify almost everything in life. Starting from, a hierarchy of animals, plants, and ending up with, of course, the built environment, what makes up a building. And it's important that we are able to communicate and speak the same language. And that's why we still need, for the foreseeable future, common classifications. In the long-term future, of course, machines will be intelligent enough that we can say something about a column or a window in whatever language, in whatever classification, and the machine can interpret that for others. But that's a little bit further in the future. In the meantime, we still need a kind of a common language, and a classification is in my view, something that we really need. But okay, now going into more detailed questions about DigiPLACE. And for example, there's a question here about digital procurement and the alliance procurement model, which is differing from traditional procurement models. And these alliance procurement, or IPD, integrated project delivery models, are widely utilized in Finland already. Maybe Alan, can you maybe comment on how the DigiPLACE project has an influence on procurement, and is
Yes.
there room for alliance kind of models?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I'm probably not the only one being able to answer to this question, and I'm not sure about a comprehensive answer, but anyway, I do believe that as far as DigiPLACE, I mean the DigiPLACE project itself is concerned, this is not, from my point of view, our main role of telling people we should use the classical procurement models, or we should use the new alliance procurement models. What is important for DigiPLACE, from my point of view, is two things. The first one is that, and that's also why the community is so important, because there are many, many initiatives, many developments here and there, and it's very important that the most we have people in the community of interest, the more we will get information on that. But I do believe that DigiPLACE first have to acknowledge the fact that today there are developments, various procurement models. Maybe in a near past there was only the classical ones, but now new ones, and in particular through the alliance procurement models. So we have to acknowledge this. And doing that, what does that mean? This means that we have to elaborate a reference framework that will allow, indeed, construction stakeholders in the future to, in some way, how to tell this, smoothly deal with any type of procurement. Should they be classical procurement models? Should they be coming from this alliance? Should they be maybe in the future, I don't know, new form of procurement model that could be developed in member states? But the most important is that we acknowledge that those different models exist, and that any type of RAF compliant platforms will be able to deal with that. And that would lead, of course, that could lead, by the way, to different scenarios for implementing digital platforms, though they could be compatible. Just giving a very, very quick example, and I'll be very, very short. Think about the railways network. In France, for instance, we have what we call the classical railways network, where you have classical trains, have also, of course, the high-speed trains railway networks. But of course, high-speed train networks can, of course, run on the classical railway networks. So, and the reverse is true as well. So what is important is that we have to ensure that in the future, in all cases, there will be different situations depending on the types of project, depending maybe on the types of regulations, on the various local, regional, or national boundaries. And we should ensure that digital platform in the future can really handle all those different models and being able to really manage all those various boundaries.
Okay,
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Alan. Does anybody else want to comment on the alliance model? Maybe Mimo, since Finland was mentioned. Do you want to comment on the alliance model and, you know, link to digital platforms?
Yes, I mean, alliance model, of course, I mean, it's also like about the kind of like how we're exchanging the information and really working towards the same goal. So in that sense, that's really linked to the platforms and the data and real data and the data which is updated. So I see that kind of like the platform is really useful tool for alliances to even perform better. So I think there is a great synergies in that sense.
Thank you, Mimo. Let's take the next question. It's directed to me and Alan, but I would really love if Alan would answer this first. Is it productive that individual countries go ahead with their own money and don't wait for funding? So I'm not sure exactly what they mean with this question, but how would you answer this, Alan?
Okay, maybe just my interpretation of the question first. mean that, well, if they're an irrational that there are development at a national level, whilst it would be better maybe to have only development at European level. Maybe it's kind of an indication on my side. But anyway, what I do believe is that, yes, both are useful. I would say that national development are useful because this will be the only way to get or to dive into the details of the requirements and wishes from construction stakeholders in various countries in Europe, and also to better identify what are the different constraints, boundaries in each country. So that's something which is very, very important. And it's also important, of course, that there are, from my point of view, preliminary experimentations in various countries. So there has been presentation of the Platform of Trust in Finland about all those development, very, very impressive in Estonia. There is some platforms as well. For instance, there is the Croquis platform in France. There are other platforms as well in Belgium, in Netherlands. So that's something which is very, very important, and which allows us to leverage, by the way, on the expertise and the experience gained from those developments. On the other hand, there is as well a need to better work at a European level, because at a given point in time, I would say that we would all dream, or at least I'm dreaming, about kind of a single construction digital market. A single construction digital market, by the way, doesn't mean only one digital platform, and it doesn't mean only public platforms, not at all. We are keeping, of course, our model of private and public platforms, and with a fair competition, of course. But we would dream about being able that, being in a situation where every SMEs, for instance, could deliver some kind of digital service that can deliver this through any kind of platform throughout Europe. About funding from the European Commission, this funding, of course, will not come from the digital project itself. It's also not the fact that after digital, there will be only one project developing digital platforms at European level. There will be calls launched by the European Commission. There will be 2, 3, 4 winners, I don't know, that will necessarily, of course, involve various partners in different countries and potentially demonstrating interoperability of various platforms. But there should be also ongoing development on the public side and on the private side. And I would say that probably, of course, on the public side, there is rational that there is, I would say, yes, this national funding as well. But of course, with the intention, as far as possible, to rationalize the national funding on one side and the European funding on the other. And these, of course, are still to be discussed, I would say, between the European Commission, between the various member states, in particular those directly involved in DigiPLACE, but I would say all member states, and also, of course, the construction stakeholders and the industry. Over.
Thank you, Alan. Professor Turk, how would you comment the same question, really? Local initiatives versus European-wide initiatives. Are there similar initiatives in Slovenia?
Slovenia has quite an active BIM scene, no question about it. A lot is going on. Also, a couple of developers who are active in the ecosystems of AutoCAD or Nemetschek and so forth. On the governmental level, things are not as expeditive as they could be. There have been some proposals, to create a Slovenian BIM strategy from the government down, but it did not happen. However, I think the investors are fairly motivated, to ask for BIM. Public procurement is asking for BIM on all major projects. So I would say it's happening bottom up. And by bottom, I mean also the owners, I mean also the investors. As to the development of the platforms, etc., I think it is important that DigiPLACE, many other projects, also research and development that has been going on for quite some time, gives a signal, a signal that there is an opportunity, that there is a possibility that this could be a really good strategic formula. And then it really depends. I am sure that many commercial actors will recognize the opportunity and start working in the platform way. So I do not necessarily believe that this has to be a government initiative, or that the governments or the European Union or someone like that is supposed to deliver the platform or the platforms. On the contrary, it would be very nice to see software developers picking up on the concept, and in a fair competition. And this is something that politicians and European Commission have to do. And in fair competition with the Americans, deliver a solution that is better than what is currently on offer. So there's a room for both parties, and I think with DigiPLACE we are doing our part. The public organizations, the publicly funded university, the publicly funded project from the EU. It's setting up some groundwork, disseminating knowledge. Also, we are, teaching and lecturing about this. An opportunity is there. Who will take it is open.
There's a couple of questions also which are similarly topicked and related to Estonian initiatives, and I would say that the DigiPLACE project comes at a very good point in time, because there are several initiatives in member states, like Platform of Trust, like Crocky platform, for example, in France, and in several other places in Estonia as well, which are kind of moving towards platform economy, the mind shift towards how to exchange digital data in an automated way. And being involved with DigiPLACE for us is extremely important, because we are already developing the solutions, and we want to be compatible with whatever higher level or European architecture there's going to be. And it's really important that we all look towards the same goal of how do we exchange information, not only within between companies and organizations within our country, but the digital world is a global world. There are no borders. So we really need to think about how we bridge the gaps and eliminate all obstacles between data exchange of services in one country and another country, of one type and another type. And I think that's the value of DigiPLACE, and what we hope to get out of it is that we adjust our platform to be compatible with it. We share our knowledge of the development of the Estonian e-construction platform, the mistakes and lessons we've learned that could potentially help others, and we are looking for the same information from Finland, and other countries as well, to see where they've stumbled and what could be the better approach. But in the end, it's all about interoperability really, between services, and that's why I think DigiPLACE project is really important. But another question regarding standardization. Is there cooperation with CEN and ISO? So maybe Luigi, as you were explaining us how the community of stakeholders is involved, I think CEN and ISO are also stakeholders, or are they of a different type?
Really, as you see, yes, I mean, organizations can be part, associations can be part, but really the community is is more focusing on, as you see from the list, from a slide of the list for users or I mean subjects that are active in the market now. ISO and ISO and SEN, yes, they are part, and there is an active cooperation and discussion with them, basically mostly at the European association and federation level. But I don't think we have any of those that are part of our advisory board either. But our organization have contacts with them, and we know what they do. So if we need to involve them, we will involve them. So there are, let's say, channels open now besides the community of stakeholders. Community wants to really bring in subjects, people, organizations that are somehow part of this very wide ecosystem, but that feel the need or the desire to provide their point of view or to be informed about these developments. Because as you said, DigiPLACE somehow, and if we work well, will have an impact on the future of construction digitization. So the community is really to give space to individuals or organizations, companies that are not already this part of the, let's say, the organizations that are normally participate at their point of view to the Commission or to the European and international activities of the sector. I don't know if I've answered to your question.
Thank you, Luigi. I think it did answer. Does anybody else want to comment on SEN ISO? In my view, it's more like DigiPLACE is building on top of the standardization work, and of course we have to follow standards, and we have to try, and especially regarding open standards. But is there any more direct involvement with the SEN and ISO? Yeah, go ahead, Nicolas. Oh, sorry, Alberto. Yeah.
It was Alberto, yes.
Yeah.
Beneficiary of DigiPLACE, and the Italian standard representing SEN in the advisory board. So we had a strict connection with with the SEN, with the Italian standard. Is a part of the advisory board, but it represents SEN.
There's another comment regarding the mind map, actually, that they recommend really opening up more of this information to the stakeholders to get their engagement. But I think events like this, there will be more and more events like this, and it's better to engage when you really have something to show, and that's why I think now during autumn and the winter, it's really the best time to join the community of stakeholders and get engaged, because there's a lot to discuss and to disseminate. But we have one more question about CCI. So I understand this topic is interesting for people. We don't have an official website out yet. There's references to CCI on the Czech standardization website and also on Molio website in Denmark. So if you're keen about learning more about CCI, first place you can take a look at is molio.dk, which is the Danish organization who is involved with the development of CCI. It's actually based on the Danish CCS system. So it's kind of the next evolution of CCS. So there are the roots, but we will set up an international website soon, and we will, send out information to all participants involved. But from looking at Slido, we are out of questions for now. If there's anything from the audience here at Swiss Hotel. Typical Estonians, no questions. But we are almost at the end of our time anyway. And I would like to thank all the panelists for being available here. And for the closing remarks, I would kindly ask Mimo to say a few words as well. And then we can wrap up the show.
Okay, thank you, Jan, and thank you for this this wonderful workshop for DigiPLACE. I mean, I think this has been really showing us the possibilities, but also the ones where we need to develop. We started the day with the productivity curves, and we showed that there is a lot of things to do for us in the Europe. But the good news is that the whole world has the same problems in the construction sector. So this is why actually the digital transformation is so important for us, because that's on the European level also very important as a competitive edge for our construction sector. We showed really nicely the timeline and the expectation of the DigiPLACE, so the whole project. And we also learned a lot about the different perspectives from Estonia and Finland, especially about the platforms, about their specification, how they are used, what are the kind of like what we need to develop more, what is functioning already now, what are the interfaces, how we make best use of the platforms. Also, we heard really interestingly about the reference architecture and the possibilities were really nicely highlighted that this is really the place for businesses, for the markets, for the good collaboration, for better quality in the construction sector. After the lunch break, Alan was showing really nicely the big picture about DigiPLACE, so the strategic roadmap, why we are doing this, what is our aim really in the long-term perspective as well. And from Italy, we heard really nicely highlighting the importance of involving all the stakeholders. We know that construction sector, especially, we have big players, but we also have many small players. So we really need to think about that, how we are doing the future platforms, the future collaboration in a way that all can participate and all can be involved. The answers and questions session was also like really nice. It was really nice to hear the reflections and the brainstorming, what we need to do in the next steps. So I really want to thank all of you. Especially I want to thank the DigiPLACE about organizing this really nice workshops. And it was really good to do this in cooperation with World Digital Built Environment Virtual Conference 2020. So I hope that we can see in a few weeks in virtual Tallinn and in virtual Helsinki in VDB 2020. So thank you from my behalf as well.
Thank you, Mimo, for the excellent wrap-up and summary. I really don't have much to add to that. She already said everything. I would just like to thank again Ave and the technical team for making sure that all of our presenters from across Europe were able to connect and without major glitches. I think that's always a great achievement in today's world, especially when we have a very complicated setup like this. And take part in the DigiPLACE community of stakeholders. Become a member. Go to digiplaceproject.eu. That's the website where you can find out ongoing information about the project. And also, as Mimo said, we also have a slide just to visualize the WDBE event. Who we are doing this event in collaboration with them to spread the word. So we're helping them to spread the word about the virtual World Summit on the Digital Built Environment, which is going to be an illusion city of Helsinki and Tallinn. First time in the world, it's going to be you'll be able to participate in this virtual conference through the Unreal gaming engine. So it's going to be fantastic. We don't know 100% how it will succeed, but I think either way, it's really exciting. So wdbe.org is where you'll get more information and you'll be able to buy tickets. But I think that's it from us today. Thank you for participating, for watching online, and stay tuned for ongoing news about DigiPLACE project and get involved. Thank you, everybody. Okay.